The Evolution and Ramifications of PACs and Super PACs, a Zev Dickstein film. There are different perspectives on the many issues emerging from fundraising in politics, including legal issues, ethics, and rights and responsibilities. Looking at the evolution of PACs will bring further understanding of the role of money in politics today. Currently, one of the big players in fundraising in politics are PACs, or political action committees. PACs are usually a union or labor fund that can raise and give money to candidates. There are limits on how much money someone can contribute to the PAC and how much the PAC can contribute to the candidates. This graph shows how much money PACs have raised since 1976. We don't know how much money was spent before the Federal Election Commission was created in 1975 because there was no primary organization to track the amount of money spent by candidates and groups like PACs as there is now. I talked to Larry DeCara, a former Boston City Council president who looked at the graph.
Certainly is indicative that there is a great increase in recent years, almost exponentially, and that is very, very scary.
The first PAC, which was the Congress of Industrial Organizations, was started in 1944 by John L. Lewis, a labor leader and president of the United Mine Workers of America from 1920 to 1960. It was a formation of many unions that came together to raise money for Franklin Delano Roosevelt and support the New Deal. The PAC did not violate the Smith-Connolly Act of 1943, which forbid unions from contributing to federal candidates. Instead, they took voluntary contributions from union members. The Congress of Industrial Organizations merged with the American Federation of Labor to form the AFL-CIO in 1955. I asked Andrew Mayerson what the responsibilities of PACs are.
From a legal perspective, as long as they report accurately who they gave money to and who they got money to, and in some cases who they got money from, that's almost, and they don't coordinate with candidates if they're not supposed to be doing so. That's almost literally the sum of their legal responsibilities.
In addition to the Federal Election Commission being created to track money spent by PACs and other groups, it was also created as a part of the Federal Election Commission Campaign Act of 1971, which increased the disclosure of contributions to federal campaigns. The reason for its creation was that there were reports of serious financial abuses during the 1960s, and especially the 1972 presidential election. Super PACs came about after two Supreme Court decisions, Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission and SpeechNow.org versus the Federal Election Commission, made it possible for corporations to create super PACs and spend unlimited money on campaigns. I talked to Andrew Mayerson. What about the rights of the super PACs on PACs? I know you covered this a little bit earlier.
Well, they effectively have the right to raise as much money as they want, and as much money from any individual contributor as they want, and spend as much of it as they want on any candidate. No limits in either case. No limits on how much they can raise, how much they can spend, as long as, again, they're not coordinating it with the candidate.
I talked to Matt Lesser, a state representative in Connecticut and one of the first candidates to run on Connecticut's public financing system, which made it so that candidates didn't have to rely on money to win. And I asked him what he had to say about super PACs.
That if you spend a lot of money to help me out, but you're not giving it to me directly, that cannot possibly corrupt me. But the fact is, I'm not stupid. I know who's running TV ads on my behalf. I understand who I owe favors to. And alternatively, I might not introduce a bill to ban some horrible chemical or make people safer in some way if I have to worry that if I do that, the company that makes that chemical is going to take out TV ads with their super PAC to attack me. That's a bad thing. That's something that happens all over the country today, both on state legislators, in city government, and of course on the federal level in our Congress.
This graph shows how much money super PACs have spent every election cycle since they were created in 2010. I wonder if John Lewis knew that about 75 years after he created the first PAC in 1944, with limits on contributions and limits on how much money the PAC could contribute to the candidates, thought that would turn into super PACs with virtually no limits. There are some, though, who support super PACs, like the Heritage Foundation. This is what they had to say about the creation of super PACs. And I'm quoting, "In conjunction with the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court, this decision goes a long way towards restoring First Amendment rights that have been systematically denied over the past 30 years by so-called campaign finance reform laws, most of which are more correctly termed as incumbent protection laws," unquote. What they are saying is that super PACs are helping democracy because they are guaranteeing that anyone can contribute as much money as they want to political campaigns according to the First Amendment. You have a right to express political speech, but is it really responsible to spend unlimited money on any campaign? There are other perspectives as to what the rights of super PACs are. For example, David Bossie, president of Citizens United, the organization that sued the Federal Election Commission and created super PACs, expressed his opinion.
The First Amendment protects all speech, but the most important protected speech under the First Amendment is political speech. And I felt that it was important to be able to participate, and I wasn't going to let the federal government tell us that we couldn't do it.
Monica Yoon, a lawyer, writer, professor, and journalist, expressed her opinion about what the people who support super PACs are doing.
They've been pushing three metaphors down our throats in the courts, in Congress, in public messaging, and in the schools. And those three metaphors are that money is speech, that corporations are people, and that elections are a marketplace that rightfully belong to the highest bidder.
Super PACs are not only affecting national races, but local races too. This school system was affected by the Koch-funded super PAC, Americans for Prosperity.
Big money is definitely trying to change people's lives here. Koch brothers are fabulously wealthy billionaire oil barons.
Free enterprise, capitalism is alive and well.
Now, this didn't happen in the Cambridge School Committee election, but I asked 2013 Cambridge School Committee candidate Joyce Gerber if money affected her race, and showed her this graph.
To get onto the school committee, a pretty low political position in the city of Cambridge, you have to spend a pretty reasonable amount of money, almost, half of what they're paying you to be on this committee.
I asked her what the money people raise does to their campaign.
Like when I think of that, I think, well, maybe the money they're able to raise allow them to reach more voters.
For other perspectives in this documentary, I tried contacting the Heritage Foundation for interviews, the Cato Institute, and the American Enterprise Institute, but despite repeated requests, they all declined. The responsibility of a super PAC is to disclose their donors. When they can spend unlimited money and affect local races, is disclosing their donors enough of a responsibility for the amount of rights that they have been given?